Cool.
Doing.
Then yeah, go live on Facebook. No one watches
Yeah.
us on YouTube, so that's okay.
It's all good.
Some people might watch us.
We're not famous enough yet.
Are we there?
Are we there?
Are we there?
How do we know?
Why do we always ask that? You would think
Because we don't know.
we're a minute late.
No,
We don't
I
get
see myself.
proper
I
notifications
see myself.
from.
We don't.
Oh boy. You give me a laptop that's not muted, Brad. What are you doing over here?
Well, you know
You
what?
take a few weeks
I
off.
take a few weeks off, and that's what it
Oh
goes.
man.
Hey, if we're live, welcome
Look,
everybody.
Josh
to-
Coburn is already here.
No
That guy
kidding.
was
Hi,
like,
Josh.
you know what I really want to do tonight? See more Trevor, Brad, and Barb.
Who wouldn't? Really?
I mean, that's exactly right.
You know, that's kind of the way I
Okay,
feel.
so yeah, look, we're live right there. See, now if you go,
I wanna
if you
look.
go to your car.
Oh, I should start a watch party too.
Yeah, we're all starting a
Oh,
watch
we're
party.
starting.
This is how we. In case you're just tuning in, we always just kind of kill the first 2 or 3 minutes, hoping that someone might actually show up to watch us.
But Vicky's here. Uh-oh. Rookie
don't
mistake.
have a lot.
Leaving volume on my phone. I do
Now-
this every time.
You know, it seems that it's coming from that side of the table.
I know.
All of a sudden.
There's a lot of problems over
I
here
don't
tonight.
know
Here, I
how
got
to
you.
do this.
Jordan shit would sound so weird.
I'd rather be at my desk.
Sounds like we sound like robots.
No, I don't sound like a robot. Hello.
Mm.
Hello, everyone.
Do we still sound like robots?
Huh. Well, if we're not talking, they can't tell whether we sound like robots or not.
Well-
So, do we all sound like robots? Or is it just
Someone
one of us
needs
that
to
sounds like a
answer
robot?
Trevor's question.
Well, Jordan's the only one who told me I sound like a robot.
You know,
Well, what does Jordan know?
He knows a lot.
honestly,
I don't know. Maybe.
the YouTube broadcast last Sunday actually sounded a little bit like that. Also,
Hmm.
a little echoey.
We're a little echoey.
We're a little echoey. Oh, look, right here is your start.
Okay.
Oh, I
watch party.
do.
Start
My
watch party.
My
There we
watch
go.
party started.
There you go.
Oh, we all sound weird. We don't sound weird in the headphones, though, right, Courtney?
Who knows?
Courtney, did you put the headphones on? Do we sound weird there?
My first week back from sabbatical, and we've totally messed this whole thing up.
I don't know if we totally messed it up yet.
It's
Well, let's
it's pretty
start.
close.
Come on now.
It's pretty close.
All right, I'll be right back, guys.
Oh.
I'll go troubleshoot.
Goodness.
So Trevor's going to go for a little while and try to fix things and see if we can't get this right for once. Welcome. For those of you who do not know, this is my lovely wife, Barb, sitting right next to me. She reluctantly agreed to be on C3 Thursday Live.
I never agreed.
Okay, we forced her to be on C3
That's
Thursday
correct, Steve.
Live. And, yeah, we're excited about this.
No, we're not.
I think we are.
Do
I
you?
really do, yeah. We could start with the brain teaser right away.
I better get the right answer. Okay, I can do that.
You can do that? Okay,
I
we're
can
going to go
start.
ahead since it's already 2 or 3 after, so we're going to go ahead and do the brain teaser while they're fixing things up there. Hopefully it's
There's a
it's
lot
okay.
of pressure because Kim has won.
She has the only one that has gotten it right.
Yes, and we all know that okay,
It's
go
all,
ahead.
nobody else has gotten even close. So even if you miss this, it's not that big a deal. Okay, so it's actually a riddle tonight, and I hope I can get. I hope I say it right to give you a
Hey,
chance.
diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle.
Not that kind of riddle.
Oh,
It's a riddle. Okay, what gets wetter and wetter the more it dries?
what gets wetter and wetter?
The more it dries.
An ice cube.
That's a great guess.
I think it's correct.
It's not the correct answer, but it's a
I
great
do
guess.
think it's correct.
You think it would be correct also?
Yes,
No,
because
the
it melts and there's a puddle. And
No, the answer is a towel. It gets wetter and wetter as it dries. Kind of a little trick question right there.
That riddle stinks. And if you would like to vote for me in the fact that that stinks, please do.
Yeah, there you go. All right. How do we sound now, Trevor? So we'll fix that some other time. So hopefully next time, we're here.
Okay.
I'll explain what's going on.
Okay.
I have no idea. We sound fine in the headphones.
Yeah?
We sound fine coming through the camera.
Yeah?
So, I don't know what to say.
I don't either. We'll just.
Maybe it's because this mic is so tall and,
I
it's not.
but we sound fine.
Oh, we sound fine.
Somehow we're broadcasting as robots, even though we're not robots.
That's all right.
That's okay.
I don't know.
It's all right. It's all good. All right. Very good. So, hey, well, welcome to C3 Thursday Live. And This is an edition that we're doing just with some of the staff. That
Oh,
we
yeah, I muted my mic. They didn't hear anything I said.
Oh, Lord.
Oh,
Help us.
is anybody actually watching?
Yeah, they're all telling me I'm the worst. Josh Comer, they're just here for my screw-ups. That's what they're
That's
really
what
here
they're
for.
really here
Yeah.
for. No
I'm just
problem.
making you guys look good.
We've been talking with the staff over the last few weeks and interns and things like that, talking about next steps. And that's
Wait,
what we're
did she
gonna
fail
do.
the brain teaser already?
She failed the brain teaser.
Oh, I thought
gave-
you were thinking still.
Do you
No,
want? Do
I
you want the
gave
brain teaser?
a
Did you
look.
hear the brain teaser?
No.
Okay.
I was very busy.
Yeah.
Okay. give
Okay.
him the
Let's
brain
see if you
teaser.
get it right.
Okay.
What gets wetter and wetter the more it dries?
I said an ice cube because the ice
Oh.
cube melts and that's like drying. and
What
it
about
becomes a
like
little water.
dry ice? Huh?
No.
I don't know.
How about a towel? Gets wetter and
I
wetter.
see what you did there.
yeah.
All right,
I
all
thought
right.
that was pretty good. All
So-
right. Hey, start us.
Yeah,
Okay, let's
so,
just get going because we are blowing this as
That's
we speak.
okay. As Brad was saying, we've been now 3 weeks in a row talking to people about their journeys, just kind of, we're all about kind of our story and the way God intertwines with that, here at Crossbridge, and we talk a lot about that. And so 2 weeks ago, I think him and Michaela were on. Last week, I was able to share a lot of my story. And so tonight, we're going to hear from 2 of our staff members. Since you guys are married, we're combining you. Does that, ever get old? You're like, I wish I was my own person.
We're kind of used to that.
No.
All right. I just don't
I
want you to
am
feel
my own
like
person.
neglected or anything.
No, I'm not neglected. I don't even really want to be here.
All right.
That hurts a little bit.
But we're going to be talking to you guys about your journey into ministry, your journey with God, kind of how that's gone over the last 20 plus years. And so if you guys actually have questions or things that you're interested in asking, you can put those in the chat and I'll filter through them, which means
You probably
Be
won't,
very
you probably will not
careful.
use any of that. is what
ask
you're saying.
really ridiculous things and I'll throw them all out there for them. And so for you guys, just kind of to get us started, I've known you guys for 13 years now, I think, right? I think that's when Courtney and I started dating, freshman year of college. And so I've only really known you guys as being super involved in sports ministry and that kind of being your whole life. So tell us kind of how that journey
And terrific
started.
in-laws.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Also that part.
Okay.
So tell us kind of how you got started in all that, how it became a passion, what your journey to sports ministry kind of looked like.
Well, I
Do it.
can start that one. It's a long, long time ago, but 26 years ago, Brad and I were married. And we decided we were going to start going to church as a family. We had both let that area of our life kind of fall apart, among other things. But we decided to go ahead and go to church. The kids were 5, 7, 8, 8, and 9. We obviously have a blended family. We were both married before. And that's a whole topic for a whole other show. is
That's a lot of
blended
kids close to
families.
age.
That's a
That
lot
sounds.
of kids.
I think you need a lot of Jesus for
Oh,
that.
Amen.
I'm telling you. But as we went to church, we had been going for maybe a couple of months, and the associate pastor came to us and said, "Hey, we're thinking about running this basketball league." And
So you were at a church a couple months and they had run no sports leagues
None.
previously.
none,
Okay.
nothing.
Okay.
And we were brand new, so we were too stupid or too scared to say no.
We didn't know you could say no.
We
Yeah.
didn't know you could say no. And
You just
when-
thought that's what church was like.
Exactly.
When
That's
the
what you do.
pastor asks you to do something,
what you do.
say, okay. And plus, the kids were all going to play, and we kind of felt obligated by that. And so that's where it started.
Yeah, we just decided that it was, something that we could probably do, and said yes.
So would you guys say it was like you were excited that it was a sports league? You just said yes because you felt obligated. Like there was no real passion in it when you started.
We had no idea
fair,
what was
fair.
going to happen. I love sports, and I thought, hey, this is a great thing to do. I grew up playing sports, and thought this would be a great way just to have the kids involved and be around the family and things like that. Barb, on the other hand,
I hate sports.
hate's a strong word.
Hate is a very strong word. That's why I said I hate sports. And so for me, it was more about that it was something we could do as a family. It was, I have my master's in education, so I love kids, and we kind of always have had that joke that we work very well together because he hates kids and I hate sports. So there you go.
So why not run a kids sports
Kids
ministry?
sports ministry,
Why
yeah,
not? Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess for you, Brad, like a question. So you've done this. How long ago did you say it was? 20.
I think we've been running sports leagues now for almost 25 years.
Okay.
Right
So
at that.
25 years ago, it starts off. You were working in landscaping at the time.
we owned a landscape company.
Okay.
And we're doing that. We actually ran, and it started off with basketball. So the season was basically January and February. So we weren't working much at that time, except for snow plowing.
4 a.m.
And so we thought this is a lot of time. Now the thing was we started adding sports and it became year round. We did all the sports we did. So we were a year round sports league. Still running a full-time business, and we did that for 10 years.
That sounds silly, Brad.
It was silly.
Yeah. So I guess for you, like, what has kept your interest for 25 years doing, part-time volunteer into the last 15 years, I guess, doing full-time ministry? What's kept your interest in that sports ministry?
Yeah, the thing that we realized, again, we thought, well, we're going to run these sports leagues. It's going to be fun, and obviously it was fun, but we started realizing right away what an influence we had, not only on the kids, but we had an impact in the families. And it was an easy way to build relationships. And I think we as Christians sometimes, we started encircling ourselves in this little Christian bubble. We hang out with our small group friends, we hang out with people at church, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we isolate ourselves to the point that now we're not making a difference in a community. And this was an opportunity that Barb and I saw that hey, we are surrounding ourselves with some unchurched, some people who are far from God, and we have a way to influence them.
No. I mean, that's true. But I started out because he was messing up all sorts of stuff. I mean, the detail, he has none. He has no
It's
detail.
true.
So there was no, I felt like I needed to help him with the excellence of the whole thing and making sure everybody had a jersey and that sort of thing. I really justified it as, God's given me the talent to be somewhat detailed, and so I should use that. Well, it took me, it was a long walk because originally that was, it wasn't a faith thing. It was just, this is what I do well. And but it did evolve to that ministry aspect where I could go and start talking to some people and then realize, gosh, I mentioned that I'm a blended family, and this person was just going through a divorce, and we visited, and so you build those relationships, and eventually, Brad's going to be preaching on Sunday, and he's talking about blended families. Why don't you come and join us?
Yeah.
So it did evolve, though.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to hear both of you because I would say you're both very, very passionate, and I've seen that, enthusiasm and excitement still in you guys, and yet really for strongly different reasons, I kind of feel like, which is cool to see how you're both able to use, those gifts and those passions and really reach different people. And I think for you guys, even being able to minister, to coaches and to refs, I just think that's a really cool thing. And it's funny listening to Courtney talk about her childhood.
No, now I'll start out because our first concession stand, and it was solely to try to keep track of 5 kids on a game day, was a cardboard table and a cooler, had Reese's on the top and pop underneath, and I think those first few years the kids got to keep the profits. So that kept them busy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Salesmanship and
I might come out
whatnot.
if I could keep the profits.
Yeah, no, we've changed that.
Yes.
We've changed that.
But they did. They ran a concession stand, and it was fun watching because as they grew, I mean, this is basically they grew up doing sports ministry with us, and Courtney coached some. She actually played. They all
And Courtney
played.
knows nothing about
Nothing.
any
She's
sport.
just like Barb with sports.
Yeah.
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 She's
And-
enthusiastic, but I talked to her about sports, and she's like, I don't know what any of that is.
Exactly.
How did you coach?
Yeah,
She coached cheerleading, to be perfectly
I think she did
honest.
some. I think she did helped with basketball one year too.
Maybe, and
But-
probably soccer.
But
too.
then and one of the kids actually, Lindsay ran a whole building. We got so big that we had to run a different building, and she actually ran. I think she was in high school at that point. Ran that whole league over there for us there. So they actually grew up all around this. It was kind of a cool family thing to do.
I think we have an obligation as a Christian to set an example for our children. Yes, sometimes you have to get up early, and sometimes you have to do things that you may not want to do. But I tell you, it's taught all of our kids to be servants and to work hard and have that motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of to transition a little bit, we've talked a fair amount about the sports aspect, how you guys got into it. I want to switch a little bit to talk about the faith aspect. For both of you guys now, this has been a 25-year journey into this ministry. And really both of you have kind of continued to take on more in different roles, which I think is really cool to see. But you've also been through a lot of transition in that 25 years.
True.
And I know, Brad, you've shared a little bit from stage,
Right.
off and on about some of this stuff. But if you could talk a little bit about how, God was there and faith was there and how important that was really through your journey to where you guys are today.
It was interesting because, like I said, we ran this league for 10 years, still running our business, and we were fairly successful with our business, and it was taking a lot of time. And we were at a conference down in Orlando, Florida, for sports ministry, and I don't know why we were separated, but we went to the session together, and I was walking back, and I found you over by the pool talking to some friends of ours, and I said, I really feel like God just told me that we're supposed to do this full time. And it wasn't an audible voice or anything. It was just a sense of it is time to go to the next level. And I'll never forget, you looked and said, I felt the same thing during that time. And so we knew, and we came back and met with the pastor of the church and said, hey, we don't have any idea what this means, but I feel like we got called into full-time ministry, that I'm supposed to do this full-time. And so I'm going to start pursuing this and praying about it and see what happens. And it was interesting because he said, well, if you're going to do it full-time, you're going to do it here. And basically, that was starting the transition. And that from that point on, and Barb still was not doing that full-time. And
So she was doing it full time.
Honestly, she was doing it full-time. I was just getting all the glory for it.
There's some truth to
which
that.
is just the way it goes. But and then that was just the start of the process, and then both of us went through some transitions. You had some big ones.
I was working full time for that 10 years. I was actually in the medical field and loved my docs, but just was very unhappy in that job. The problem was that it paid me really well. And so I'd go to work, sad. I'd come home crying, and Brad would say, why don't you just quit? And in my mind, well, who's going to support this family then? I mean, not that you weren't doing anything, but it became this fear. And I realize now that it was kind of a lack of faith there. I was trusting myself to provide. I was trusting myself to have the next job lined up and all this. Well, over several months and maybe even a year,
Yeah, probably.
I still continued that, and eventually it just got bad enough that I quit.
Yeah, so kind of funny story about that. I think Brad was in the office the day you quit, and I went home, and Courtney's like, my mom quit her job. And I was like, yeah, I know. And she's like, why didn't you tell me? And I got in a lot of trouble the day you quit. So I remember that day pretty well.
It really was. It got to a point that she was so unhappy, and we didn't know what the next step was. And that's the one thing that we've talked about here so often, is that sometimes what we want to know what the next step is. We want to know what God's plan is. And all we knew is we had to get to a point that we had to have the faith to take the next step and trust Him to provide. We had no idea what was going to happen next.
I didn't even know that was the next step. I just ended up I couldn't take it any longer.
Right.
And so
It was unhealthy for you.
it was unhealthy, very unhealthy. But here's the funny way God works. Not 2 weeks later, I got this phenomenal, just by chance, offer from Youth for Christ. And shout out to the most phenomenal bosses, Larry Lance and Traver Whelan and Kent Yost. Just a totally different work environment. I loved it. I was going to stay there forever.
Yeah.
Until God tells you to take another next step.
Yeah.
And
To
the
hang
funny-
out more with your son-in-law.
Yeah, I wanted to be with Trevor day in and day out. Well, I say day in, but it usually starts more like 11 o'clock.
Yeah. And ends at like 2.
Ends at like 2. Okay, because he is a youth pastor. No, but the 2 jobs were, here I am still working full time. The first one I absolutely hated. The second one I absolutely loved. But I had learned that, hey, I've got to trust God in this. I've got to, if He is nudging me and saying, okay, you can't be doing everything you want to do for C3 and be doing everything you want to do for YFC, you got to make a choice. And He kept nudging me that way. So, one job was, it made me happy to leave because of the circumstances. The other job, it tore my heart out, but I still knew that God would provide.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of Christians struggle with is giving up something good or giving up something great for what God has in store for
Right.
you and for the best
Which is
option.
always something better.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And, we've talked about my story quite a bit, but from stage and things, but when I was on staff at a church, man, it was I was in my dream job. It was just things were going amazing. People were coming to Christ. It was just incredible, and all of a sudden things started falling apart to the point that I actually ended up being pretty much miserable, and I wondered why God would you have me leave and call me into a ministry that now all of a sudden things are falling apart. And had no idea where he was going to go, and ended up working for another sports organization across the country, and found another dream job. And I was using my experience from the church atmosphere to help other churches start programs and start evangelism and watching their churches come alive. And so I'm thinking, okay, God, now I get it. This is what I understand, and this is why you led me that. And then 6 years later, that came to a screeching halt. And I'm thinking, here we did it again. Now, the good thing is because I'd been through this before, realizing that, okay, God just got some kind of other plan for me at this point. And that's when this whole miracle thing of coming to Crossbridge actually came to, and then starting our own sports league ourselves. And, you couldn't have written the script the way it happened. So now it's just a matter of how long is he going to leave us here?
Yeah. Well, and not to steal your story too much, but really, I'm only here because you guys were here, and that's how I found out about Crossbridge too. So
Right.
I don't know if they hate us all now or
Yeah,
they're happy with you, but no, it's something interesting. So, kind of a follow-up question: Is there like a verse or a Bible story that you guys kind of clung to through this time, or really helped you, or kind of helped shape your mindset a little bit?
Well, you always have that, don't trust what you understand. You better, just go with it. And I think that's the thing that, with hindsight, I can look backwards and find all sorts of scripture that supports everything that we went through.
Yeah.
But we weren't, I was not able to do that at the very moment.
It's amazing to look at the story and look where we'd come through, all the struggles and the victories and things like that, and look back now and say you can see God's hand in everything
Every
that
single one of
happened,
them.
even the down times of you thinking, why is this happening to me? And so it was good. As far as script, there's 2 that always came up to me when it came to being in ministry. One is a story, I think it's in 1 Samuel, where Jonathan takes they're waiting outside of a camp, and the enemy is across the ravine, and Jonathan gets his armor bearer and leaves the army behind and goes over and says, let's go see what's going to happen over there, and perhaps God will show up. And that's kind of the faith walk that you had to have sometimes. The next steps is perhaps God is going to do something. He's going to intervene in that situation. And then the other one is the Elijah and Elisha, where Elijah goes to Elisha in the plowing in the field. He's the 12th person out there, which means it's a very big farm. It's a very rich family, and Elijah puts his cloak on the plow and starts walking off immediately. Doesn't even say anything to Elisha. And Elisha follows him immediately because he knew that, hey, I'm being called into ministry, and says, hey, let me go back and tell my parents and things. And that's a whole, we could preach that one. But ends up taking his plow and his oxen, basically throws a party, burns them so he can't go back to what he's doing. Knows that there's a call there, and says, I will give up everything that I have, not knowing where God's going to take me, but knowing that I'm called to that. And those two stories just, and anybody that I've seen called into ministry that says, hey, I feel like it's the same similar type of stories. There's always a sacrifice. There's always a give up. I mean, honestly, we probably could be making a lot more money running our business as we always have, but the rewards are amazing.
And that called into ministry is not necessarily full-time
Right.
ministry. It can be you're called to, coach a team or teach Sunday school or whatever. But all of those things are going to take a leap of faith at
Right.
some point.
And cost you something.
Yeah. So Jordan asked a question, even
Yeah.
though he couldn't be here tonight with us.
No.
He's on vacation. I don't have to listen to it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to
just
read his
kidding,
question
Jordan.
anyway.
Okay.
Well, I'll try to read it. So Jordan has an interesting question. You guys have been here a long time, and I know that we've started to talk about kind of like what's next for you guys or what's next for the ministry. And you've also expanded a lot of sports. And how many kids do you have playing soccer this season?
361.
Yeah.
362, not
You have
including
85 coaches, right?
Right.
I think I saw.
not including our integrated
So
special needs league.
447 people coaching and playing.
Right.
Which is crazy. And so he kind of asked, like, as you guys have become very good at empowering people and to start leading in different ways, like, how does that look for you guys to let go of responsibility, trust other people? How have you shifted your time in the ways you've spent in trying to develop leaders? What does that look like for you guys the last several years?
We're horrible at that.
Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Just
But-
He
ask
actually
Vicky
said
Morabel.
you've become very good at it. So he was
Well-
complimenting you.
Yeah, that's very good. And I think a part of this is God knows we're getting tired and old, and He honestly has brought. We say we're horrible at it because we're both kind of. It's been our baby, so
Control freaks.
Yeah, we're control freaks, and so we know what to look like. But I think God has brought us some very unique people, some amazing people to come alongside of us, especially these last 4 or 5 years. And as many of you know, I just came off a sabbatical, and one of the things that had just came across in my quiet times and in some of the books and things I was reading is to finish strong. And we're going to go as hard as we can for as long as we can, and surround ourselves with the right kind of people, which I think God is still putting those pieces together. And I think that's going to. He's going to bring the right people at the right time, and we're going to be able to release more and more and more of this whole thing.
As people get involved in at least the sports ministry aspect, they learn to fall in love with it like we have. And I can remember getting all wishy-washy, and one of our great leaders said, you know that we're not going to let this die. That was huge.
Yeah. And I think that's important, though, being able to translate, your guys' passion and enthusiasm onto, other people and get them as excited as you
Right.
are.
We are very fortunate to have the leaders there. And like I said, I used to work for a national company, and then we were all over the United States. And there is not another church. This is going to sound really arrogant now that I think about this, but I don't mean it that way. There's not another church our size pulling off what we are doing. Most churches that run the size of program we run are churches that attend 4,000 to 8,000 people. This is unheard of. If I was counseling a church and saying, hey, you want to get into sports ministry, I would never tell a church this size to do what we do.
Well, and a little kudos here too. We have terrific partnerships. We have coaches that are Christians that do not attend
Right.
Crossbridge. Most of them, and they just have jumped right on board with, hey, this is a program that's going to help people and kids. So they see the value of that too.
Right. And it's translating that enthusiasm. And one thing I think is really cool that you guys didn't mention is, after the launch of C3 Sports, which was like 8 years ago now or something.
Yeah,
How much
2011.
you've kind of been able to meet with and talk to other churches who are, talking about similar things and just
Right.
being a free resource. And
Yeah.
I just think that's really cool that, people may not see is how much, you guys have been able to help other churches.
This church has influenced a lot of other churches. There's 10, 12 other churches out there running their own programs and doing stuff. And we've been able to feel fortunate. We feel like that's our kingdom give. That's what we're here to do.
Well, we've been able to, through some youth kids, some others and other people from the church have written we call them take-a-knees, and we've been able to share those with other churches, so they use that.
I just think that's really
cool.
that you guys are still chasing that passion. So it's 8:30, but I have a last question that you kind of both hit on a little bit, but if you can kind of sum it up in a short sentence, it's just
Short sentence. I don't.
it
do
doesn't have to be a
those.
short sentence.
Okay.
I just mean don't ramble
They
for a
can
half
wait
hour.
5 more minutes.
They can. You're right.
This is worth it.
They
right?
love hearing your
I
voice.
know
That's what
that.
that's all they're
Okay.
typing in chat.
I put lipstick on for this.
But just like we talk a lot about next steps here, and you guys have taken a lot, and you've talked a lot about the faith and the things. And so, what kind of advice, or what would you say to someone who is maybe struggling with taking a next step, or wants to and not sure how? Like, what advice would you give someone looking to take a next step with God?
Yeah.
I think I can sum it up to just jump in. I think what happens is we overthink things. Do I have enough time, and do I have this, and do I have that, and all those things are good to consider. But I think sometimes our fear keeps us from doing something, which to me translates to you're not trusting God to give you what He needs. What you need to pull off, or what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you're not trusting enough. So if you just jump in, I don't think if you have everything in control and everything figured out, you're relying on God at all. And it seems to me that should be the most important thing, that you need to rely on Him when you don't have it all figured out and why you ought to be doing things.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with exactly what I was going to say is not only you jump in, but you don't have to, you don't have to know what the next step is. You just have to be willing to take that next step. And it's something Michaela actually talked about. You can take a next step, and it may not be, so many people don't take a step because I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, your whole story starts with taking a step towards something you weren't passionate about because you didn't know better.
Exactly.
It's been 26 years, right?
And who would have thought that first meeting that it would have changed absolutely the direction and course of our entire life?
You just wanted to get out of coaching, of doing Awanas.
That's true. I did
all.
not want to do Awana anymore. Okay. But yeah, so do it.
Can't imagine that. Awesome. So that's, I think, really great advice. And it's cool to hear your guys' story and the way you've processed in your journey. And so, yeah, I would encourage you guys out there, just like they have, like, take that leap, take that step. Don't be scared, and don't, let that fear take over. So
exactly.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your story.
Hey, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
I'm never doing this again.
Yeah. We're going to be back next week, Jordan and myself. And
I'm fired.
Woo! No, he'll be back sometime. But I'm looking forward to getting back with my old partner. And we're going to do C3 Thursday Live. I'm actually teaching this weekend, finishing up and wrapping up the Let Us series. And we're going to be talking about Let Us Be Bold. And I can't wait to get back up on stage and talk. So hope to see you on Sunday, either at 9 o'clock or 10:30. Is that when we still meet?
I can't wait for you to talk also.
I can't wait. All right.
It's the favorite part of my week.
We're out of here. See y'all.
Bye.
Thanks, Trevor.
Yep.
You're very kind.
Hey, that's what I'm here for.
Turn it off.